The US government took people's gold in 1933 with the stroke of a pen. No warning, no debate, just a signature. Imagine waking up one day and your most trusted asset is no longer yours. Not because you lost it, but because the government took it by law. Fast forward to today, silver has just been declared a strategic mineral by the United States government. That means it's no longer just an industrial metal or a precious metal. It's a strategic national resource tied to the power grid, the military, national defense, and every clean energy promise the government ever made. In a national emergency, strategic doesn't mean protected. It means prioritized. It means controlled. They won't need a new law. They won't knock on your door. They'll simply announce they're changing the rules, and your silver could go from private property to a public resource. Just like that. Frozen, flagged, seized. Not because you did anything wrong, but because the system decided it needs your silver in the name of national security. And here's the part most people miss. It won't come with a press conference. It'll start with a declaration you never hear coming. A clause buried on page 1913 of a bill no one read. And if you think it can't happen, or that silver is somehow immune because it's an industrial metal, then you haven't been paying attention. Because if silver is now considered critical to national security, then you need to ask yourself, what does that mean for the people who own it? Let's talk about it. By the way, I'm Noel Lorenzana. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This is not financial or investment advice. The Gold Confiscation of 1933. In 1933, the US government did something unthinkable. It confiscated gold from its own American citizens. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed Executive Order 6102, making it illegal for Americans to own gold, coins, bullion, or certificates. They said the reason was to stabilize the banking system and combat the Great Depression. If you had more than $100 in gold and didn't turn it in, you were now considered a criminal. Penalties included up to 10 years in prison and a $10,000 fine, which is over $200,000 in today's dollars. And guess what the government did with that gold? They revalued it. After collecting it from law-abiding citizens at $20.67 per ounce, they revalued it to $35 per ounce overnight. That's a 69% devaluation of your dollar right in plain sight. They didn't need to break into homes or send troops door to door. They didn't need to. Fear and compliance did the job. And why does this matter today? Because it shows that confiscation doesn't require force. It just needs a financial crisis, a national emergency, and the right narrative. And now silver might just be on that same path. Silver reclassified from industrial to strategic. Most people think of silver as just an industrial metal, but recently that's changed. Silver was recently added to the US critical minerals list, and that's a big deal. Why? Because this list isn't about jewelry or coins or industrial needs. It's about national security. Silver is now considered essential for America's economy and defense. And you already know how essential silver is. That demand isn't slowing down. We already know there's a structural deficit. The world has been consuming more silver than it produces for at least 5 years and counting. The Silver Institute has confirmed this. And if a geopolitical crisis were to hit, or if the US needed emergency access to critical metals, do you really think the government would ignore privately owned silver? They didn't ignore gold in 1933, and today's silver is arguably even more important than gold ever was. Think about it. History shows they've done it before and could do it again. People think silver confiscation has never happened in America, but that's simply not true. It has happened, and not just once. Let's start with 1934. Everyone knows about FDR's gold seizure in 1933, but a year later, he passed Executive Order 6814, which authorized the federal government to seize silver held by private citizens and businesses in exchange for 50 cents an ounce. The US Treasury was ordered to take all domestic silver stocks not needed for industry and hand them over to the government. They called it a national silver program, but it was confiscation just the same. And this wasn't even the first time. Back in 1873, Congress quietly passed the Coinage Act of 1873, and overnight, silver was no longer money. They didn't need to kick down doors or physically seize silver from its citizens. Instead, they changed the law, making it illegal to mint new silver dollars, and also they could no longer be exchanged at the US Mint. Silver still existed, but it had no official role in the US monetary system anymore. While silver made a brief return to coinage after public outcry, it was ultimately phased out again in 1965. That's what people mean when they say confiscation by policy. You didn't lose your silver coins, but you lost their value as money. The silver miners in Western states were furious. They called it the crime of '73. Fast forward to the 1960s, the US government quietly removed silver from US money. Starting with the Coinage Act of 1965, dimes and quarters were stripped of real silver and replaced with cheap copper and nickel slugs. It wasn't a raid, it wasn't a seizure, but the value was taken just the same. The silver didn't disappear, it was simply phased out by law. And once again, most people didn't even notice or even care. That's how confiscation looks like when done by silver-tongued politicians wearing a nice suit and tie, pun intended. When they change the rules, your wealth can vanish. Now think about this. All three of those examples didn't require door-to-door raids. They didn't need to send troops to your home. They just changed the rules and the silver was taken from you. So let me ask you, if we had a national emergency today, one that made silver critical to defense or energy, do you honestly believe they wouldn't do it again? The truth is the mechanism already exists. The Defense Production Act gives the federal government sweeping emergency powers over strategic and critical materials. Silver was recently declared as strategic by the US. And buried deep in 1,000-page laws are clauses that can be triggered under national security or climate emergency justifications with barely any public oversight. They wouldn't call it confiscation, they'd call it mobilization or emergency nationalization. But the result would be the same. Your silver would be illegal to own. And let's be honest, if the stakes were high enough, war, energy crisis, grid collapse, all bets are off. The emergency powers are already in place. Let me be 100% clear. The legal framework to seize silver already exists. We don't have to imagine some dramatic law being passed overnight. It's already there, buried in plain sight, inside 1,000-page bills most lawmakers didn't even read. For example, the Defense Production Act, which gives the president the authority to requisition property, prioritize contracts, and allocate materials deemed critical for national defense. And guess what material was recently added to the government's strategic mineral list? That's right, silver. That alone opens the door, but it doesn't stop there. Under various emergency declarations, the government can invoke special powers hidden in the Patriot Act under economic threats, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, the Stafford Act under disaster declarations, and new legislation like the CHIPS Act, Inflation Reduction Act, and green energy bills that grant material seizure authority in times of supply disruption. We're not talking about some future possibility. We're talking about codified authority, already passed laws, just waiting for a justification. And history tells us, in a crisis, powers get used, whether you like it or not. So you need to ask yourself, if we hit a monetary crisis, a war, or a supply chain shock in energy or defense, and silver is mission critical, do you really think they'd hesitate? Of course not. Not when they already have the authority, not when they can say it's for the good of the country, because if it's declared essential to national security, then all bets are off. That's the uncomfortable truth. Could you make silver untraceable, hypothetically speaking? Now, let's be clear. I'm not telling anyone what to do. This is not financial or legal advice, but I already know the questions that are going to pop up in the comment section. If silver confiscation is even remotely possible, how could you protect it? So let's walk through this as a thought experiment. If, big if, the government ever did move to seize silver, the key challenge would be tracking it down. Unlike stocks, bank accounts, or digital currency, physical silver is mostly anonymous, unless you leave a paper trail or even a social media trail. So hypothetically, here's how someone might minimize traceability. Buy silver with cash, not a credit card, not a bank wire, no third-party payment apps, just good old-fashioned cash money, face-to-face. Buy from private individuals, not large bullion dealers that are required to collect customer data or issue 1099s in some cases. Try to avoid shipping records. If you buy online and have it shipped, guess what? That purchase is now trackable. So maybe in-person buys only, but you need to watch out for scams. And don't talk about it. This is where people mess up. If you post online about your stack, brag to friends, or even mention it during a divorce, audit, family squabble, you've already created a trail. Store it privately, discreetly. No bank safe deposit boxes, no storage facilities that require ID or log your access. We're talking about old school, bury it in a coffee can kind of mindset. Use multiple hiding spots, not all in one place. Think redundancy. Buy a shovel. Think concealment. And most of all, don't tell anyone. Because in times of crisis, people talk, people panic, and unfortunately, people can betray. Now, let me say this again. This is all purely hypothetical, and frankly, it might not even be the right question to ask. The ethics of hoarding silver in a national crisis. If silver really does become crucial to national security, to produce energy, defense tech, or medical equipment in a time of war or disaster, maybe the question isn't how to hide it. Maybe the better question is, would you be willing to part with some of it or all of it if it meant protecting your country? I'm not saying I trust the government to handle it fairly, and I'm not ignoring the abuses of the past, but if things ever got that bad, truly bad, maybe you'd have to make a hard decision. Silver is valuable because it's real, it's trusted, it's honest, and if a moment ever came where a country needed it, not for politics, but survival, what would you do? Look, I don't want to scare anyone, but I do want you to think realistically. Silver isn't just some poor man's gold anymore. It's becoming too important, too essential. And when something becomes essential to the system will do whatever it takes to control it. If you're stacking silver, if you believe in sound money, then you need to be aware of the possibility. Confiscation isn't likely anytime soon, but if the right crisis hits, war, grid failure, currency collapse, then all bets are off. The government has done it before, they can do it again. So be wise, be private, and be prepared. But let me know what you think in the comments. Do you believe silver confiscation is possible? And if needed, would you turn in your silver? And if you want to know about how gold could be revalued to $15,000 overnight, then you need to check out my video right up here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.